Hold on. Today we are going to be talking about antibiotic use, allergies, and understanding the mastermind of the microbiome. So this is a huge topic, and I'm going to try to keep it concise and into this. I have to keep it into 30 minutes because I have a patient at 12:30. So we will, but I'm going to pull up some notes here as well because I have a ton to share with you all. And I am a regenerative detox specialist, a holistic nutritionist, amongst a million other things. I do iridology, herbalism, craniosacral therapy, abdominal therapy, and traditional naturopathy. So I used to have autoimmune myself. I used to have lupus, Hashimoto, fibromyalgia, and adrenal fatigue, as well as unexplained infertility, all considered non-curable diseases in the body. And of course, here I am, completely healthy and vital health. And I want to talk about this connection between autoimmunity and antibiotic use, and allergies and antibiotic use. So to simplify, what we're experiencing right now. Sorry, there's so many people coming in. That's great. What we are experiencing right now in our culture is a sterilization, is a germ theory approach to life, where we're hand sanitizing, wearing face masks, running from all germs. And I'm here to tell you that is the absolute opposite of what we need to be doing. And we're not going to get into any politically charged conversations. We're just going to get into science of the human body. So please mute yourselves as you come in. And Jen, I'm going to actually, I was going to try to make you a co-host, but it doesn't look like I can do co-host. So I'm just going to mute everybody. Okay. So understanding the human body is basic. We are trillions of cells and two fluids. So we have blood that it controls our circulation. It feeds all of our glands and our organs. And then we have lymph, which is 80% of our body's fluid, and it cleans all of our glands and our organs. This is a vital system that is in charge of clearing out digestive and cellular waste. So what you eat, what you drink, what you breathe, and what you put on your skin comes into the lymphatic system, and that has to be removed through the lymph to the kidneys, and the kidneys out through the urine. So that's one way of our exit wave for lymphatic waste, cellular waste, digestive waste, air pollution waste, everything that we kind of come encounter. Now, outside of these two systems, I mentioned we're trillions of cells. We are actually 10 times more bacteria than we are cells. So bacteria is an incredibly essential part of our vitality and life force. And every bacteria in our body actually has a role. So I don't like to say there's like good bacteria and bad bacteria, but you hear like a lot of times it being referred to as bad bacteria when you have an overgrowth of candida or an overgrowth of yeast or fungus. And that isn't, the bacteria isn't bad. It's literally there to clean up a mess. It's there to clean up excess proteins. It's there to clean up cells that have degenerated and are walking down the atypical path. And I'll talk about how that happens in a moment. But we first must understand that bacteria is like not only in our gut. So we have about 100 trillion bacteria in our gut alone. But then we also have bacteria in our nose, on our skin. We have different bacteria that's on our cheekbones compared to our chin bone. We have certain bacteria on our arm skin and in the vagina for women. And it's super, super important to know these things. I'm going to be doing a call soon on C-section babies and how we can improve their life. In the sense of the bacteria exposure. And so there's essential bacteria that plays a role in every single part of your body. So the more sterile we get as a culture, and the more sterile we are with ourselves and our lack of exposure to bacteria, the weaker we get as a human species. So we are one with Earth, with Mother Earth. So we have the gut biome, and then we have the microbiome of the soil. And these two are very interconnected. And so we see right now, I'll just give you a little statistic, but less than 1% of the Earth's soil is deemed nutrient dense. And we are seeing the highest levels of human dis-ease in history, the highest levels of infertility in history, and levels to the point at which in the next 5 to at tops 10 years, our entire infrastructure will crumble because we cannot support life itself with the amount of money and time and people it's going to take to support the level of disease that we have. So I know that's like really heavy to come out like that, but this is like the real thing. Like we have to turn this ship around right now, or we're heading down the road of in 60 years, we will see the rest of the topsoil, the lack of the health that's already there is going to be completely gone. So I want to draw this connection. I have a lot of notes, so I'm going to read just a little bit to keep myself on track and on pace today because my brain is very full. Um, but really understanding that this connection between antibiotics, I think, is why a lot of you are here. So we grew up, or I grew up in my age, I'm almost 40, and I grew up in that culture of like, take an antibiotic, right? If you're sick, take an antibiotic. So what is an antibiotic? It's an antibacterial. And what did we just talk about? We are 10 times more bacteria than we are cells. So now every time we have a little bug or a little sniffle, we're taking an antibacterial. So we're killing off the entire bacteria environment, not only in our gut, but it does travel through the body. It does make it like when we're taking, like the stuff up our nose for sinus infections and all of that, we're killing off these essential microbiomes, these essential bacteria that actually are what strengthen our immunity and strengthen our health. And really all they do is, whatever was happening, whatever symptom you're having in your body is literally an enhancement. It's like an expression. So, for example, my childhood disease was bronchitis. I would always get bronchitis. I'd be coughing up green stuff. I'd get a fever. Well, fevers are so, so, so good for you. They are how your body burn up excess waste in the lymphatic system. And we learn to suppress it with a Tylenol or take Dayquil or take NyQuil or just get that fever down. No, no, no. We do not want to get that fever down unless it's above 105 degrees, 104 for your children. And so you can actually have a really high fever and be completely fine. And ways that you can manage that high fever is to get into a cool bath, do ice packs, do cold cloths, drink cooling things. You don't want to warm up and bundle in a blanket, even though that's your instinct. You actually want to cool yourself. But that fever is burning up essential waste. And once it's done its job, it's like, great, we're done. And the fever comes down on its own. When we medicate a fever or we take an antibiotic, we have now suppressed what that bacteria was trying to do, what that bacteria was trying to clean up. And we've just kept the mess in the body and we put it now deeper into our lymphatic system. So let's talk about the effect of antibiotics. So not only is it killing off the gut cells, but it's killing off literally 90%. So you have a 90% reduction in your bacteria in your gut with one antibiotic use. One. Now, people that are on repeat strains of antibiotics over and over and over, they literally, your body doesn't know where's the sun, which way is up, what bacteria is good or bad, because you are literally losing your way in the internal intelligence of your body. And so the only exposure it gets post antibiotics is whatever you're putting in your body. So, what kind of foods are you putting in your body? Are you putting chemicals in your body? Are you putting high proteins? Are you putting heavy fatty acids? And so, it's literally trying to duplicate itself based on whatever you're putting in your body. So now you're going to get this concept of the overgrowth of the bad bacteria. You're just literally, the body's duplicating whatever you're giving it because it's like, we need bacteria. We've got to we need a community. We need to colonize. And so your body will start to duplicate and make bacteria however it can. And this bacteria is incredibly essential because we need healthy bacteria in order to digest our food. So we actually have to have bacteria to break your food down through the peptide stages and into its respectable amino acids for absorption. We also need bacteria to produce anti-autoimmune cells and T cells. So I'm going to go into my notes so I stay on track here because I can tell I'm getting into my excitement. I get too off track. But probiotics basically and prebiotics and understanding all of this marketing stuff out there is really essential to understand that, like, first, we have to focus on understanding bacteria and their roles. So bacteria actually need fiber because we are a primate species. We actually thrive and survive off of fructose, glucose. That's how we get our energy. So cellular ATP, which is how our cells have energy, is nothing more complex than fructose plus oxygen equals energy. Glucose plus oxygen equals energy. That equals ATP. Okay, so now we've got cell energy, we've got bacteria, and we have our muscle tissue, bone, hair, skin, connective tissue. That's what our body's literally made up of is tissues, cells, and bacteria. Now, this bacteria that we have as a primate species requires fiber, like it's necessary. And there's certain bacteria, like it eats up the fiber. So now we have people going on a ketogenic diet. We have people on no fiber diets, no fruit diets, high meat diets, high fat diets. And what happens is these specific bacterias that require fiber in order to have food are now starving. They're like, where the heck is the food? Like, we are so hungry. So the bacteria says, well, I guess I'm going to go eat this instead. And what we find is that the bacteria that requires fiber begins to eat what's called the mucin in the stomach lining. And the mucin is that mucous membrane that separates the outside world, the environmental toxins, the oral junk we're breathing in, whatever's in the outside environment, and it brings it not only into your system, but into your immune system unregulated. And that is a two-part causation. So, part one is eating the wrong foods and not having enough healthy fiber rich foods so that your bacteria starts to starve for fiber and begins to eat the mucin in the gut lining, which is what we call in the allopathic or the medical field leaky gut. And number two is the oral antibiotic that we're exposed to every single day. So the oral antibiotic is called glyphosate. Glyphosate is an incredibly toxic chemical that we have used since 1980 in our farming industry to produce fast farming processes, to produce quote unquote green crops without having to till the ground, without having to do all of the work. So, what we're seeing though is that this chemical pesticide is not only causing injury to the human microbiome as well. So, if you take a hair cell, take a hair, excuse me, bring it out, cut it in half, literally that thin. That's how thick our stomach lining is. It sounds like an error, but it's not. It literally shows you how in connection with Earth we're supposed to be. We are literally supposed to be taking in the bacteria from the soil. We're supposed to be taking in all of the oxygenation from the plants and the earth and the sun and the water. But our gut lining is not only that thin, but it is filled with what tight junctions that are like Velcro, and they really like stick together tight. And they're these tight covalent bonds, and they block inhibitors like chemicals and toxins and things from leaking straight into the immune system, because the immune system is your lymphatic system, that fluid based system I opened the call talking about. So we have this thin but not so permeable membrane that's in our gut. Now, when we are taking foods that are not organic, and now we have glyphosate being sprayed at 4.5 billion pounds a year. It's staggering to know that. But it's in 75% of our air. It's in all of the water that's running through our sinks. It's in your bathtub when you're soaking in the tub. And we have a big problem because glyphosate is an oral antibiotic. So even if you haven't taken an antibiotic from the doctor, you're taking an antibiotic in your non-organic foods and in your tap water. So this oral antibiotic acts just like an antibiotic, starts killing off everything in there. And it also destroys those tight junctions. And those tight junctions start to break apart. And then you have this permeation, and toxins are coming in unregulated into the immune system and causing a histamine response. And now the kidneys and the liver and the lymph and the adrenals are in a huge flare trying to take care of this mess. So that's two ways you're getting antibiotics. Either you're getting antibiotics because you've gone to the doctor and they've written you a script, or you are eating non-organic foods and drinking tap water, and maybe you use glyphosate on your lawn. Please stop if you are. It is running off into our neighborhoods and into your local sink that's washing your dishes and cooking your food. So this is a big problem, and many of us here are on the front line of trying to shut down glyphosate. Some of the great resources are Non-Toxic Neighborhoods and Farmers Footprint and Dr. Zach Bush, if you want to look deeper into this topic. But I'm going to go more into antibiotic use and recovery. So on average, it takes a bare minimum of 6 months to quote unquote recover 50% of the bacteria that was killed off. And that usually is shown through people that are eating leafy greens, rootsy foods, organic from soil, using pre and probiotics. And gosh, we don't have enough time to talk about that, but probiotics and prebiotics, people think like, oh, I've got to take all these to build up this colonization of healthy bacteria. And that's not actually accurate. The way that pro and prebiotics work is they actually work as they're traveling through the body. So they start feeding the good, and if you're having an overgrowth of certain strains, that's why I don't like probiotic capsules, is there'll be 6 or 7 strains of bacteria that are being overfed by sugar. And as they're traveling through the body, they may be overpopulating some of those strains. We actually are supposed to have millions and trillions of bacteria in our gut, and it's supposed to come from the microbiome of the soil. So it's really important that if you're going to use a pre or probiotic, that you are using something that comes from soil. Like, so the Ion Biome is my favorite from Dr. Zach Bush. It comes straight from 60 million year old soil. It's literally like you're drinking dirt water. And it actually not only is repopulating, these millions and trillions of bacteria, but underneath a microscope, when studied, it actually starts to repair the tight junctions in the gut lining and reconstitute that boundary from the inside and the outside world. So those are amazing things. Now, it can take up to 3 to 5 years to recover from antibiotic use. So this, I know that everyone here, myself included, has been in that state. Not as an adult, I haven't, but we're like, oh, I'll just take an antibiotic and I'll just take a probiotic after. We think it's that simple, but it's actually not. You can almost always prevent that antibiotic. Now, I am not a medical doctor. I am not to be taken as medical advice. I am speaking my truth and my experience and my knowledge and my education, and it's to be taken as you wish. So I want to just make that clear. But you can take up to 5 years to recover your body from antibiotic use because you're recovering like 300 trillion bacteria. And it takes time. And how are you recovering it properly? What are you eating? Are you eating well for 3 years? Probably not, right? So it takes a lot of work. So this idea of like, oh, I have an ear infection or I have a UTI, I'm just going to take an antibiotic. I'm here to tell you that that's a sign that there's an overgrowth of fungus in your lymph system. You can take care of that with herbs, and you can take care of that quickly. Now, the connection that we're seeing between antibiotic use and allergies is just that. When you have trillions of cells and two fluids and your lymph is not properly eliminating through your kidneys and your system is backed up, which means your urine is clear instead of cloudy, you should have cloudy urine. And the lymph system, just like we eat and poop, your cells eat and poop. They discard their waste into the lymphatic system. When that happens, there's now, instead of having a lake with nice flowing water that has a drainage point, we have a swamp that is not moving. And every time your cells discard their waste, they just keep adding to the garbage pile. And now we have lymphatic acidosis and cellular waste build up all throughout the entire body. And when we have this, now we go outside, it's allergy season, AKA there's pollen or cotton dander or whatever is in the air, and it's a slight irritant to your body. Or you eat something like peanuts, which are derived from mold. So no, it's not good for your body anyways. It's a good thing your body's saying, I don't want it. But you start to have, anaphylactic reactions, sneezing, itchy eyes, closing throat, all of those things that happen as an allergy. And literally your body is saying like, I am full. I cannot take on any more pollutants. I don't have anywhere to put them. They've got to go back out. So that's allergies. We see significantly higher allergies in people that have used antibiotics as children and adults. So 80% of dis-ease begins in childhood and manifests itself in the early 20s, early 30s, and sometimes into the 40s plus, depending on, your genetic constitution, your lifestyle, et cetera. So we see this huge connection between antibiotic use and allergies. Now we have 1 in 4 children with some level of allergy or food sensitivity, which is crazy. It used to be like 1 in 500 or 1 in 1,000. Now it's like every fourth kid has something wrong or has an EpiPen. And this is because the level of injury that has happened to the gut biome and things passing unregulated into the immune system, and the immune system being so backed up, the kidneys being so backed up, they can't take on one more thing. And it's this repeat exposure, abuse, exposure, because we're eating non-organic foods, we're eating processed foods, we're drinking water that's filled with glyphosate, we're taking antibiotics every time we get a sniffle. And we have gotten so far into germ theory and so far into like germs are bad that we are losing our way as a human species. And the more bacteria you're exposed to, it's literally like push-ups for your immune system. It's like, okay, great. What can I do with this? That's 10 push-ups, right? Your body's getting stronger and stronger and stronger, the more bacteria. And I love seeing the farm squad up here. They're like working in the soil in Hawaii and they're just like rocking it. And I'm just so proud of what they're doing in permaculture. But I'm going to go a little bit deeper in the last 6 minutes here, um, to talk about the bacteria. When we don't feed our healthy bacteria fiber and they get hungry and they start eating the mucin, which is the gut barrier, we also have to understand that these bacteria that require fiber, and fiber comes from your fruits, your veggies, your seeds, your lentils, some of your sprouted oats, these bacteria actually produce T regulatory cells, which are incredibly important for the prevention of autoimmune disease. And they also make what's called natural T killer cells, which are immune cells that eat up cancer cells. Now, I want to get away from this idea that we have cancer cells in our body. And I want to let you know that what a cancer cell is literally a cell that is starving. So it's a cell that is lacking its own ATP. It doesn't have enough cellular energy, that adenosine triphosphate, and it's walking down the step to atypical because it's literally being destructed on its own acids. So the more acid forming foods you have in your diet, like your meats, your grains, your dairies, your refined sugars, the things that come in boxes that don't grow on trees, that is not food. If it doesn't grow on a tree, it's not a food. And we have to remember that. We think like, oh, it's healthy, it's gluten-free, it's vegan, it's, or whatever your regulations are for healthy. But if it's in a box, let's be honest, it's not food. So we have to look at this. And when we have this constant acidosis, so now we've got this swamp and your cells keep dumping more into the swamp. Well, all those acids surrounding the cells are breaking down the health of the cell, and that cell is becoming atypical. And so now these T cells that are being formed by the healthy bacteria, the fiber eating bacteria in your body, start to eat up those cells. They're like, oh, you don't belong here, I'm going to eat you. Oh, you don't belong here, I'm going to eat you up. So the less fiber you eat, the more protein you eat, the more refined sugars you eat, the more junk you eat, the less healthy bacteria you have, the more immune compromised you are, and the more atypical cells you have just walking around freely in your body because there's no good bacteria there to eat them up. Everybody give me a nod if that makes sense. I'm trying to keep it simple because there's a lot of science. Awesome. So it's just kind of like exercising. You're literally exercising your immune system. So this is an essential piece that we are not getting into this antibacterial, because we have to feed the 100 trillion bacteria in our gut the right types of food. And instead of like, where did you get your protein? We need to start asking people, where did you get your fiber? Where'd your fiber come from today? Like, we just need to start it. Hashtag where's your fiber or something, right? Let's start a got fiber or something like that. But we are a primate species, which means our primal foods are fruits, berries, melons, vegetables, root vegetables, small amounts of nuts, seeds, and avocado. Those are our primal foods. They're all the foods that feed the right bacteria in our body. And when we have too much of the meat proteins, or really any of the meat proteins aren't great for us, but you take what works for you and leave the rest. But as we have these heavy ketogenic diets that are, the ketogenic philosophy is it helps you lose weight because it puts your body into ketosis. What is ketosis? Cell starvation. That's what ketosis is. So we are literally taking the vital life force of carbon energy that your cells need to survive and thrive. And we're saying, you don't get to have any. Good luck. And the cell goes, oh my God, I'm starving. What am I going to eat? And then it says, okay, well, I'm going to eat fat now. So the cell starts to eat fat instead. And so we get thin and we value thinness in our society as health. And so we think, oh, they're getting skinny. It's super healthy. Yay. No. Mm-mm. The cell is eating fat. And now we are walking down cell starvation, ketosis, cell death, atypical cells, and the overfeeding of the wrong bacteria. We do not want these protein bacteria because all they are is fungi. They're fungus, yeast, molds, all of these things. If you think of cheese, it is fermented, it's bacteria, it's fungus already. And so we're eating all these foods and we're killing off the healthy fiber bacteria because we're not having any fiber. You're not allowed to have fruits on the ketogenic diet. And so now we have the wrong cells being activated, the wrong bacteria is being activated. And before you know it, you're going to have constipation. Eventually, you'll go back the other way. You'll gain the weight back. Ketosis only works for so long. So I have like 9,000 things on my list that I want to talk about. But the last thing I want to say here are basically we have over 200,000 proteins, but only 20,000 genes in our body, like, like our genetic code. We have 20,000 genes and 200,000 proteins. Now, how do we make these 200,000 proteins? There are 26 amino acids, just like there's 26 letters of the alphabet. There's 26 amino acids that will build these 200,000 proteins. So this is essential to understand. So our body makes our own amino acids all the time. It's making our amino acids, but there are 9 that our body cannot make that have to come from the plants, that have to come from the soil. And specifically, it's a pathway called the Chickamay Pathway that comes from plants are folding their proteins or their amino acids. Sorry, it's so dry in here. And we have to get those from a plant source. Well, glyphosate, like I mentioned, that tears holes in our gut lining and causes all sorts of inflammation and chronic acidosis and cancers and blah, blah, blah in our system, does the same to the soil. It's killing the microbiome of the soil. It's killing the healthy bacteria of the soil. And it's breaking down so the plants don't have their micronutrients and they don't have their essential amino acids. So now the human that is supposed to make these 200,000 proteins with these 26 amino acids, we only have, I don't know, 18 of them or 20. So for example, if you take out a vowel out of our alphabet, we're going to screw up thousands of words. And that is what we're experiencing as a human species right now. We have people having chronic miscarriage. Miscarriage is like the body's like, I don't have enough information. I can't make this baby. I have a sperm and I have an egg, but I've only got 18 amino acids. Right? So we have miscarriage being high, infertility being high. We have autism in 1 in 25 children. It used to be 1 in 6,000. We're on the way to 1 in 4 by 2030. We have ADHD, we have Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, where we're finding these misfolded proteins that form a mucoid plaque and get stuck in the brain of people with Alzheimer's and dementia and Parkinson's, et cetera. So we have this massive level of injury happening from this antibiotic culture. And it's happening in the soil, it's happening in humans, it's happening in our plants, it's in our air, it's in our water. So what do we do? So I'm sure I've overwhelmed you, but I'm super passionate about this topic and I want people to understand that we have power. And so what you do is start eating those deep rootsy vegetables, get your hands in organic soil, make a garden in your yard if you can. Um, Support your local farmer. I know, Megan, I thank you. I do. So support your local farmer, support, whatever you can. And then we here are, many of us here are all working together with a company that is all about supporting the regenerative agriculture movement, regenerative farming, organic farming, and shutting down chemical pesticides and Monsanto and all of that jazz. So we work with really high micronutrient dense amino acid rich protocols that are coming from some of the purest, or probably the purest soil of the United States. So if you need a solution and you're looking like, how do I turn this around? I'm happy to help. Whoever brought you to this call will hook you up with a call with me or be happy to help you reverse this in your body and really start to get back on top of your vitality and your life force. And you'll know that you're struggling with this stuff if you're having belly bloat, brain fog, fatigue, cravings for bad foods, a white tongue in the morning, gas, acid reflux, All of these are signs of acidosis, overgrowth of bacteria that are more on the acid rich, nitrogen rich side instead of the alkaline side of the fence. So I hope that was helpful for everyone. I'm going to take a peek in the lobby. If they're not in the lobby, I'll come back for Q&A. Just give me 1 second. Okay. They are not in the lobby yet. So I'll open up. If anybody has any quick questions, I'll wrap it up there. But we have found some of the best, most incredible solutions here, and we're so proud of what we're doing. And we have to turn the farming industry around now. So if we don't, we're going to see starvation and the continued degradation of the human species. Anybody want to ask a question?